Motorola has launched 4 different Edge 50 mobile phones this year, and there's not a huge amount of difference between them, with one exception. The Edge 50 Neo is quite unique in terms of its design and style, and for that reason, it's my favorite. The Edge 50 Neo has a smaller 6.4-inch POLED display, which still manages to have a Super HD resolution and can blast out up to 3000 nits peak brightness. It can also display over 1 billion colors. It's bright and vibrant and is really key, yet lacks the curved edges that have made the Edge phones what they are. Because it's a little bit smaller, it's a little bit more comfortable to hold and use one-handed compared to the other Edge 50 phones that I've tested this year. The Edge 50 Neo isn't the cheapest phone in the Edge 50 lineup. That honor goes to the Edge 50 Fusion, which sacrifices some quality in terms of processor and cameras to attain its cheapest price point. This one is $699 recommended retail price, but still boasts the same camera array as the Edge 50, which is a 3-camera array, while still boasting features like 68-watt fast charging and 15-watt wireless charging. The phone comes in the vegan leather finish that has come to populate most of Motorola's range at the moment, which, is a bit of a love or hate situation. I actually really like it, although the latte color that they sent me for review probably isn't my first choice. The texture feels nice, it's quite unique, it's different to any other manufacturer's texture, so it's something that stands apart for Motorola. Because the Edge 50 Neo is just a little bit smaller, it does have a smaller battery capacity. But Motorola has tried to counter that by including the 68-watt fast charging with a charger in the box. I managed to fill this up in about 40 minutes from flat, which is really quite solid. And obviously, if you just need a quick top up, you'll get a decent amount of battery after 5 minutes on the charge. There's 15-watt fast wireless charging too, but you need to buy Motorola's wireless charger accessory for that to work. This is not a Qi 2 enabled phone, which, look, I'm a little bit disappointed with, but I expect Qi 2 to make its presence known amongst Android phones next year. I think the HMD Skyline was a good starting point, but we'll see more and more phones incorporate the standard in coming years. Powering this phone is a MediaTek 7300 processor, along with 12 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. It's not the fastest processor, it's not the worst processor. You get fairly middle of the range performance in terms of benchmark scores. In terms of using the phone, look, it does stutter a little bit, I'm not gonna lie, but I managed to spend probably a little bit too long playing Diablo Immortal on this phone and enjoyed myself the entire time. It dropped the odd frame here or there, but it was still good enough an experience to keep playing. The phone is rated at IP68 for water resistance and dust resistance, and while I wouldn't take this swimming, if you do get some splashes or accidentally drop it, it's probably going to be fine. When it comes to strengths, there's a number of features to discuss. Number one is the camera array. Now, this camera array, look, it's not going to compete with the top of the line cameras that you get in the likes of the new iPhones or a Samsung S24 series, but it's a 3-camera system. So you get an ultra wide, a wide, and a telephoto lens, a 3x telephoto lens, in a phone that costs under $700. Now that is really uncommon and is great value, particularly when you look at the quality of the photos. The photos themselves are really quite solid. There's good color reproduction, there's plenty of detail. It's maybe a little bit slow sometimes to process the images once you've hit that shutter button, but you know what? It's manageable. For what you get for the price you pay, I actually think the camera is pretty good. And it's the same camera array that you get in the Edge 50, which I reviewed, which is $100 more, slightly bigger phone. And if you remember my review of that phone, it felt like the Edge 50 was lost amongst the other Edge 50 devices on sale. So having the same camera in a smaller form factor and a cheaper phone is actually a big win. The other thing I love about this phone is the display. Look, it's 6.4 inches rather than the 6.7 that you get on most of the other Edge 50 phones, and it's more comfortable because of it. It's a 20:9 aspect ratio, so it's a little bit longer than an iPhone 16, but still feels really comfortable to hold in the hand. And when you get it out in bright sunlight, that 3000 nit peak brightness just shines. It's really gorgeous to look at. It does a great job in full sunlight, and it's really bright and clear. It's got 120 hertz refresh rate, so scrolling through stuff is really smooth and buttery, and you can enjoy the experience the entire time. When it comes to things that I didn't love about the phone, it's a short list. I think the processor is probably just a little tiny bit on the side of sluggishness compared to maybe the Edge 50 or the Edge 50 Pro. All of these phones are about compromise, balancing that power requirement versus the price that you pay. And I feel like this one maybe tips a little bit more into the value space than the performance space, but overall that price point is the sweet spot. $699 feels like the perfect price to pay for a smartphone like this. And because of that, you kind of have to be prepared to accept the limitations on the processor. If I had to pick, maybe the lack of a micro SD card is disappointing, but you get eSIM, you get a physical SIM, so it's a dual SIM capable device. You get the cameras, it's all up, it's a pretty good package. When it comes down to it, I actually feel that the Edge 50 Neo is my favorite of the Edge 50 devices and sits right behind the Razr 50 Ultra in terms of my favorite Motorola phones of 2024. It has a really gorgeous screen. The camera is really quite solid, takes some really good pictures, and the processor, while not amazing, is good enough to do most of what you need it to do. The battery life isn't as good as the devices that have larger capacity batteries, but the fact that Motorola has thrown in a 68-watt fast charger in the box means that you don't really need to worry about it. You can top this up super quickly and get through if you are running low. So if you're looking at one of the Motorola Edge 50 devices, this is my pick. You will get a good device no matter what you choose. I'm happy with all four models, but I actually feel that the Edge 50 Neo, with its slightly different design, its smaller form factor, and its solid camera and display performance, sits at the top of the pile for me at least. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, let me know in comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.